アメリカでは多様性が重視される一方で、実は今も見過ごされている差別があります。それがアジア系への偏見です。例えば、以前アカデミー賞の授賞式でアジア系のアカデミー受賞俳優をまるで存在しないかのように無視した、そんな場面が話題になりました。今回の動画では実際にアメリカに住むアジア人が経験した差別や偏見をご紹介します。
A lot of people in America believe that Asian people don't have that bad. Like racism against Asian people isn't a big deal. I grew up in an environment where you didn't see a lot of Asian people. I grew up not liking myself. I didn't like my features. I didn't like being Asian. It was to the point where I didn't think I would make it to 30. That's how much I disliked who I was. A large part of it was due to the things that happened to me when I was a little kid. It was the comments on my eyes, the food, the language my parents spoke. All of those, but what people don't talk about is when you're an adult, people just like to announce that you are a certain race because they think all Asian people look the same. That's really offensive because it just continues to feed into this feeling of I always have to prove that I belong here. So imagine you have lived your entire life feeling like an outsider, having to constantly accommodate, assimilate, because you're so worried about not belonging. So yeah, when you automatically say, where are you from? No, but like, where are you really from? That hurts. I don't sit here and say, are you from Germany? Are you from Africa? Like, no one ever says that, but why people feel the need to say that to Asian people? It's rude, it's condescending, it is discounting our existence as if we just came here yesterday. Like, why is it such a difficult belief that Asian people live here, you know? But those things add up. And they make people feel less of. As I got older, lived in more places, and I met more people, I finally started becoming more comfortable in my own skin. Now I am at a point in my life where I can say that I'm proud to be Asian. I love that I'm Asian, and I can speak up about it, but there are a lot of people that were in my shoes prior who don't have that voice, who is still battling that identity crisis. On paper, what you see is glorified, like, oh, they're successful, they're this. No, like I literally worked so hard for what I have. It hasn't ever been handed to me. Just because I was Asian, it didn't make my life easier. In fact, I feel like I've always had to prove why I was worthy of sitting in that seat. So no, being Asian doesn't make you white adjacent. I'm just sick of this narrative. So I just need people to like finally see Asian people as Asian people. I don't think being a minority period in America makes your life easier. There are so many unseen struggles that you don't see for every race, and I think everyone should practice empathy. I think you should treat everyone and make them feel like human, because nobody deserves to feel less human.
These are some things that white people say about Asian people in private. If you're a person who falls into this demographic, you might have heard these things before, but if you're a white person, stop saying these things. Number one, the Chinese food boycott by white people during the COVID pandemic. Yeah, I know of many white people who will still not eat Chinese food ever since the pandemic because they are convinced that somehow eating Chinese food is supporting China, or that they're going to somehow contract the virus through the food because of the connections that they have. Number two, saying that Asian people smell bad. This is a very pervasive myth among white conservative people, specifically referring to South Asian people. Number three, not knowing the difference between the different languages in Asia and just referring to anyone who looks remotely Asian as Chinese. Number four, refusing to visit any country in Asia, whether it's Japan, Thailand, etc., because it is either dirty or because they don't want to support the enemy. Number five, assuming that any Asian person who has had a successful career cheated because of the way Asian people are raised to be very intelligent, definitely rooted in race.
Asian people in the US are so weird at liking white people more than their own people.
Think of it like this. When COVID hit, remember all the anti-Asian rhetoric that was going around America? Now imagine that energy stretched over a lifetime. Growing up, I'd hear that Asian men are not attractive, we only know how to do math, we can't drive, we have the funny accents, the slanty eyes. It's really hard, given all of that, to grow up as an Asian man in America and be proud of who you are. Now imagine coming home and the people in your house are Asian parents who don't express their emotions, who lay hands on you, who don't ever apologize, who make you feel less than for not wanting to be a doctor or engineer. Mine also called me stupid. Oh, you'll never get into this school, you'll never do this. Look at my friend's son and what he's doing. And so when both your indoor and outdoor environments make you question your self-worth, of course you're going to try and be someone else. I think that's human nature. And in America, what group do you look towards? White people. They are the heroes in all the movies, they're on all the magazines. It is very easy to put them on a pedestal, which I did admittedly. And my story isn't unique. Now, these days, I am proud of who I am, and my heritage, and my facial structure. But it took a long time and a lot of personal growth and a lot of help from cultural phenomena like K-pop. There is so much more to say about this topic, like, for example, how a lot of Asian Americans don't feel connected to their extended families because they're not Asian enough, or how I, in college, saw up close white people with their close families and how that impacted me. But I want to keep it short. I hope this helps you and other Asians who didn't grow up in America understand us better.
Now that Asian racism is in the conversation and being taken seriously right now, let's talk about the times that I faced racism growing up as an Asian in the American Midwest. The thick skin you have to develop growing up in a white suburb of Minnesota. I was the only Asian kid, or one of the only Asian kids, in every school that I went to. So you always have like the classic, like they'll do this with their eyes when I was growing up, which is crazy. Like they'll never know how to pronounce your name and never even try. Honestly, a really sad memory I had was I was always made fun of for the lunches I would bring. So there was a day that I brought rice and like this type of dry pork. It's called jabang in Vietnamese, and it was one of my favorite things to eat ever. And I brought it to lunch and I was so excited to eat it. And then a bunch of the popular boys in elementary school, I was like in 4th grade or something, they came and they were like, what is that? And they were like kind of making fun of it, and then they like wanted to try it, and I think it was so good and delicious. So I was like, yeah, try it. And then they were like, would eat it and they'd be like, whoa, like what is that? And then I just felt really embarrassed and they were truly shaming me for it. So I remember that night I came home and I told my mom, I was like crying, and I said, I only want American lunches from now on. Like we have to pack sandwiches. So we went to the grocery store and I made her help me like pick out bread and peanut butter and jelly. And I never really ate those things. I mean, I would prefer my rice lunches, but I remember from then on I started only packing peanut butter sandwiches, which is so sad, but sometimes you just like assimilate out of survival. I remember there were times, especially walking around in Europe, but even like where I was growing up, where people would be like, oh, are you from China? Are you Chinese? Like, ni hao, when just because you're Asian doesn't mean that you're Chinese. I remember there was a time I was in Italy, and Italy is obviously like really racist to Asians, or maybe it's not obvious, but that is true. Like they will say ni hao if you're walking across the street, but it was an American family that we were sitting next to in front of the dinner table at a restaurant in Italy, and they were like ching chong to us and like doing the eyes at me. And I remember I was like 15, like 14 or 15, and I was literally trying my best not to cry. I remember that was like such a hurtful experience. That was like a really blatantly racist experience.
皆さんはモデルマイノリティって聞いたことありますか？これはアジア人は努力家で問題を起こさない理想の少数派という固定観念のこと。一見褒め言葉に聞こえますが、アジア系の苦しみを隠してしまう危険なラベルなんです。
The reason why it is that we don't talk about Asian American discrimination is because everyone assumes that as model minorities, Asians are fine. They're a small group, everything is fine, they're rich, they're successful, yada, yada, yada. And that's the model minority myth. The model minority myth is that Asian Americans are all successful. Of course, that's not actually true because Asian Americans are such a big, big, big group. So this is from a Pew Research article that was published in November 30th, 2023. So it's very recent. Right? It's just in the last year. And it says that 32% of Asian adults say they know at least one other Asian person who has been threatened or attacked because of their race or ethnicity since the beginning of COVID-19. 63% of Asian adults have experienced a situation where they assume to be not creative thinkers, not good leaders, good at math or science because they're Asian. And like these kind of racial stereotypes still continue. 9 in 10, that's 90% of Asian Americans have personally experienced at least one of 17 discriminatory incidents. I would say when Asian Americans talk about racial experiences, we're generally told to shut up and not talk about it because we don't have it as bad as other people. And I agree. And they still happen every single day.
差別というと黒人差別がよく問題に挙げられますが、アジア人差別もアメリカには根強く残っています。表向きは平等な社会でも、アジア人は見えない存在として扱われることが少なくありません。あなたはアメリカのアジア人差別をどう思いますか？コメント欄でぜひ意見を聞かせてください。最後までご視聴いただきありがとうございました。